The Independent Examinations Board has recorded a 98.7% matric pass rate for 2020, a slight drop compared to the previous year's 98.82%. The IEB exam results were released at midnight. We're now joined by the CEO of the Independent Schools Examination Board, Anne Oberholzer. Thank you so very much, ma'am, for joining us here on SABC News.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And your listeners too.
All right. Well, you know, overall impressive, I would say, in my view, of course, that 98.7 matric pass rate for IEB. I mean, especially given the kind of year that, matriculants had last year, there was a lot of concern, a lot of worry about how matriculants would perform. I actually heard a student there rightly saying, perhaps I was in a privileged position, and I appreciate the fact that he raised that, because it might not necessarily be the case for government schools. But let's talk about, really in summary, how this was really kind of achieved. Yes,
I think the year has been a very difficult one, both for learners and for teachers. I think, as that young man noted, there were some schools where the move to online learning and so on was seamless. There was no problem. And I think we will find amongst any of the privileged schools, whether they be IEB schools or state schools, that would have been the situation. But there were schools in the IEB, and I suspect not more within the state system, where that transition wasn't as simple. Things like having access to data, stable internet connections, and even in some cases the simplicity of having a computer or tablet equipment in order to move to the online. So I think what COVID might have done this year is emphasize the disparities between the haves and the have-nots in our country.
Yeah. What plans are in place for this year? Obviously, I guess there were some lessons that perhaps we learned from last year. And of course, given the fact that we are technically still, in the pandemic, in fact, we hear of the different variants, the different waves of the pandemic. Anything that you think, will be done sort of differently from your part, and perhaps talk to us about some of the lessons that, you learned last year, things that, we don't want repeated this year.
Yes, well, I think one of the key issues is the recognition or the realization that distance education can take place even without a sophisticated technology. For example, in some of our schools where either the school itself doesn't have the resources or possibly the children don't have the resources to move into online learning, what the schools did was make an arrangement similar to the old traditional distance education, where they perhaps prepared packs using textbooks, references, and either emailed these to the children where that was possible, or they put them into learning packs, which the parents of the children or family friends or the children themselves collected from the school, did the work, returned it to the school, and the teacher then marked the work and intervened where necessary. So I think one of the big learnings of this is that learning can still take place when you're not on a face-to-face classroom necessarily, or you don't have the resources. That doesn't mean that learning has to end. I think there's another very important point, and that is that if you're going to get excellent results in matric, that learning and resilience and perseverance must be developed right from grade 1 upwards. Every single year that precedes the grade 12 year contributes to success in the grade 12 year. And I think this particular set of results reflects that very clearly.
All right. Thank you very much, Anne.